Florida Podfest, who hails out of Miami, Florida, who has started numerous meetups across the country to help podcasters produce their podcasts, including the largest conference known to man called the Podcast Movement that's happening in Fort Worth/Dallas, Texas, is our first presenter. He has something creative that's never been done before for the keynote of our event. Let's give Jared Easley a really loud round of applause for that.
Feel like I'm under a little pressure. Thanks for under that. I need Don Kelly to come up. Okay. It's always been the dream of mine to get in front of the group and rap to Vanilla Ice. So you're the lucky winners. Come on, guys. These are my background dancers. Alright, excuse interpretive dancing at its finest. Hey, that club is down the street. Actually, I'm going to ask you to join me if you want to stand up. We're going to perform Eyesight Baby, just a few lines here. Alright, guys, I need your help, so here we go. Let's swing this in. Alright, everybody do it with me. Alright, stop. Collaborate and listen. I just back to the brand new and fixing something. Grab the whole of me tightly. Oh my God, it's alien. What is it? I don't know. Turn off the lights. And how to the extreme, I fight like a bando. Light up the stage, like a jump, like a dance. You're like a poisonous melody. But I play your ability. Anything less than the best is a felony. Love it. You better hate it. You better hate it. Kick them. If you're the problem, yo, outside. Hey, check out the here. Ice, ice, baby. Too cold. Ice, ice, baby. One more. Here we go. Ice, ice, baby. Go, go. All right, thanks so much. Have a round of applause there. Okay, yeah. What a way to kick off, huh? So some of you right now are like, huh? If we're in the Navy, you'd probably say, or the military, you'd probably say, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. You don't figure out what that means. What in the world? We're here at Florida Podfest, Jared. What does Ice Ice Baby have to do with anything related to podcasting? More than you think, I believe me. I know it's hashtag random, right? Hashtag random. Our session this morning is titled, appropriately, What Podcasters Can Learn from Ice Ice Baby. Believe it or not, there's some takeaways. Now, some of you are also scratching your head thinking, I don't know what I'm getting into. I'm going to take a wild guess that Jared is not properly qualified to give me any kind of talk on rap or hip hop. I feel like some of you have judged me, so I brought a little social proof. When I was in the 6th grade, I was in the talent show. I did a DC Talk rap in our talent show. I feel like this is adequate social proof for me to get up here and talk about rap. No? Fair enough. Okay, our points today. What can we learn from Ice Ice Baby? And there's 3 words in the beginning of that song that are relevant to podcasters. Stop, collaborate, and listen. Let's say that with me. Stop, collaborate, and listen. So That's what we're going to talk about today. Start with stop. When someone yells stop, I never know if it's in the name of love, if it's hammer time, or I should collaborate and listen. I felt that way. That's a unique problem to have, right? Well, podcasters have some unique challenges too. Some of you are probably saying, Jared, this is the opening keynote for Florida Podfest. You've already done a rap that was and yeah, I just don't see how you're supposed to inspire and motivate me, and now you're telling me to stop. I don't understand. Some of the greatest opportunities of growth, some of the biggest opportunities for success in my short podcasting career have come after I stopped. And I'm going to explain. As podcasters, we listen to a lot of podcasts. Most likely you listen to your own more than any others. I'm guilty of that. I listen to my show all the time. It's great. But you listen to probably other podcasts as well. So there's a lot of voices that you listen to. Is that probably true? Mostly true. When I was considering starting a podcast, I was listening to podcasts, but I was also listening to another voice. And this was a voice inside my head. And this particular voice inside my head was saying to me, you can't start a podcast that's going to have any impact. You don't have the story. You don't have the background. Sure, John Lee Dumas could do that. Pat Flynn, he can do it. But you're Jared Easley. And you just can't. Who are you to create something that is going to have an impact? And I listened to that voice for a long time. Because I really believed it. I was sitting in my cubicle. This was a couple years ago. I was in a day job. I was making money. I wasn't really happy. I was thinking, I'm not inspiring anybody. I'm not doing what I feel like I could do that's, really having an impact. Maybe I could start a podcast. Maybe I could share something. I don't know what to say to people. I'm so ridden with self-doubt. What would I say? What would I do? I don't know. I think I could start a podcast. It seems like that's a good place to begin because I don't like to write. I'm not really into video stuff. Let me try a podcast. Let me try to talk to people. I like talking to people, right? Starve the doubts. A family member said to me when I was about 18 years old, he's a successful businessman. He said, Jared, if you really, really want to be successful, there's 3 things you need to do. You need to treat others the way that they want to be treated. You want to always do your best, and you want to starve the doubts. And I remember thinking, starve the doubts. What does that mean? At 18, I didn't really appreciate that. And I almost felt like it was a little cheesy. Some kind of motivational line. But I realized with a little bit of life experience, a little bit of, life in the corporate world, starving the doubts, that was something that was starting to make sense to me. I had a lot of self-doubt. I wanted to figure out how to overcome that. I didn't feel like I could speak about that from an expert level. And then I had an aha moment. I was listening to Internet Business Mastery by Jason and Jeremy. Some of you are familiar with that show. And they talked about how you don't have to be the expert. What do you mean I don't have to be the expert? You can actually interview experts. Wow, that was an epiphany to me at that moment. I thought I had to be the expert. Now I don't have to be the expert. I can go out and have conversations with other experts and share that and still provide something that's valuable. I love listening to these podcasters. Why don't I try to connect with them? Okay. So we started Starve the Doubts. And I would love to tell you Starve the Doubts was the greatest thing ever. But the reality is there was some good, there was some bad, and at points it got really ugly. Really ugly. Today I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable with you. I've been told in the past when you're speaking in front of an audience, you cannot be the hero of your own success stories. People don't like cocky. They don't like self-gratifying. They don't like ego. And I thought, well, I need to get up and tell everybody else's story because, again, what's my story? Just that voice I was listening to. And my friend Brian Orr, I was talking to him yesterday, and he said, Jared, no, tell your story. You've learned enough at this point to point to other people, to not be the ego guy. Just tell your story, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I thought that's uncomfortable. That's vulnerable. I don't know. He encouraged me to do it, so I'm going to do it. I thought if I could get Pat Flynn on my podcast, that would be the coolest thing ever. Pat was gracious to say yes, and I thought, hey, why don't I do something a little unique, something crazy? Everybody just interviews Pat. Maybe I can interview Pat, but have him do a reenactment of Star Wars as Chewbacca. Maybe. So we did. Let's see if we can get this to play.
Let's see.
Chewbacca. Okay, I'm just as hair between the eyes, but we can definitely do that.
Deal. Okay, great. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. I'm going to play Han Solo. Jared, would you play the role of Luke Skywalker?
Thank you.
Excellent. Sounds good. Okay, so this is the scene. We're in the Millennium Falcon. Something is happening to our ship, and we're being sucked into the Death Star. So then Obi-Wan Kenobi looks at us and says, that's no moon, it's a space station. And that's where the scene starts. So, action. It's too big to be a space station.
I have a very bad feeling about this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Full reverse, Chewie. Lock in the auxiliary power. The pirate ship shudders, and the TIE fighter accelerates away toward the gargantuan battle station.
Why are we still moving towards it?
We're caught in a tractor beam. It's pulling us in.
But there's got to be something you can do.
There's nothing I can do about it, kid. I'm in full power. I'm going to have to shut it down, but they're not going to get me without a fight. Wow. Wow, cut. That is a wrap.
Who wouldn't listen to that? I think you see where this is going. We had Pat on the show. He was gracious to be Chewbacca. That was kind of fun. I decided, man, if I could get Seth Godin on my podcast, he's got a huge audience. Everybody wants to listen to Seth Godin. If I have Seth Godin and Pat Flynn on my show, that's an instant transfer of their audience to me. I'm going to have a successful show right now. So I know that Seth Godin is the purple cow guy, so you got to be a little unconventional with your approach with him. So I went to Target or Walmart, bought a yellow ball. I wrote a sincere letter of appreciation on the ball and mailed it as is. No box, just postage on the ball. This is an Instagram picture of this actually happening. Some of you are writing down his address. You shouldn't be doing that. What's that address? And mailed the ball. He got it. He wrote me back. He's like, "Pow, that's awesome. I loved it." We started a dialogue. Would you be willing to consider being a guest on my podcast? He said yes. I was blown away. Like, who am I? I'm nobody. I'm interviewing Seth Godin. That's ridiculous. I can't believe this is happening. He came on the show, and it was amazing. We did a podcast. Now, here was the reality check that kicked in. I looked at the analytics. Tumbleweeds. Crickets. Nobody. I thought, what's happening here? This is not supposed to happen. You're interviewing Pat Flynn, you're interviewing Seth Godin. This is a podcast. Everybody listens to podcasts, right? Why is my show not getting a lot of traction? That was a discouraging moment for me. It was what do I do? I feel like I'm doing things that are creative. They're a little different. I've grabbed the A-lister guest. I've done what I thought is the right thing to do. But it's not working. It's not resonating. I love to pretend that everything turned around at that point, but it actually got worse. Remember the bad and the ugly? This is where it starts to get bad and even ugly. It's like my life was becoming a bad country song. Some of you know that, a bad country song, right? There's 2 laughs in here, so the rest of you don't listen to country. You listen to Taylor Swift? Okay. All right. I actually got let go from my day job. I had done everything right. I'd shown up on time. I tried to be a good person, tried to do everything to bring value. 10 people got cut from the company. I was let go. This was December of 2013. You can imagine how that felt, getting in the car, driving home to go tell my wife it's Christmas and I got let go. Yeah? That's not fun. And then I hit a really low point. Show's not doing great. got let go from my day job. I'm in a kind of an identity crisis. My wife loves Pinterest, as she should. She likes these Pinterest, different recipes and stuff. So she's like, hey, I need you to go to Publix, and I need you to go get some items. I need you to go pick up some maple syrup. No problem. I go into Publix, I get the maple syrup, I go up to the cashier, put out my check card, swipe it, and it got declined. All right, now I look at my wallet, and I don't have any cash in my wallet. And I'll never forget the way that made me feel, because I felt like a loser. And that voice was creeping in. You're a loser. And that was a hard moment. I needed a miracle. This is wine. This is wine in the water section. I needed a miracle. And someone gave me a gift, a beautiful gift. Someone sent me an email, and they said, Jared, I love your show. I appreciate what you do. I've seen how hard you worked at this. This means a lot to me. And in that moment, I realized she noticed me. And that's really why I was doing what I was doing. I wanted to do something that had a valuable impact so that people would appreciate it. And the aha light bulb went on. I said, if someone could give me the gift of noticing me, can I give the gift of noticing them? Because I realized how important that was to me. And that was a mind shift, complete mind shift. We'll talk about stop. Right now, you need to stop listening to the voices in your head that are telling you you can't create something that has an impact. Stop listening to the voices telling you you're a loser. Stop telling you that you can't do something to notice other people and provide value. And that's what I did. I started noticing other people. Not in a weird way. It was just, how can I support other people? How can I share their podcasts? How can I comment on their status on Facebook? How can I send an email to them and tell them I appreciate them, to be authentic and genuine in doing that, not spammy or cheesy? How can I send a handwritten letter of appreciation? Whatever that is. I started to do those things. I made that a priority. Things started to change. People started listening to the show. The numbers were creeping up. I got asked to speak at New Media Expo in Vegas on a panel with John Lee Dumas. That was a big deal for me. I love John Lee Dumas. Really respected him. Me, Jared Easley, on a panel with John Lee Dumas in Vegas? Insane. This guy Timothy tweets to me and says, 7 straight hours of Starve the Doubts podcast. The best way to get through the night shift. 7 hours of listening to Starve the Doubts? Is he out of his mind? I wouldn't even do that. At NMX in Vegas, we heard people saying, why isn't there a podcast conference? There was events that had podcasting and elements of it, but there wasn't a podcast conference. And we realized, my friend Dan and I, who I'll talk about in a moment, we realized this is our opportunity. What if we could create a podcast conference that podcasters would come to? Maybe we could do that. We don't have any experience with that, though. The Voice, remember The Voice? You don't have experience with that. You don't have resources. You can't even pay for maple syrup. How are you going to create a conference? Ridiculous. That's why Kickstarter is such a wonderful thing. For my friend who's doing the Indiegogo campaign, brother, be encouraged. I hope people will support that campaign. Because people like myself and him, we need that support when you have a creative idea that brings value. And we launched a crowdfunding campaign, just like our brother is over here. And we raised over 30 grand in 30 days. And we didn't have an email list. We didn't have a history of successfully funded campaigns. We had never run an event. But we put it out there and said, will you support this? Will you speak at this? Will you share this with your network? We had friends that were podcasters that I've been generously noticing for months. And they came to bat for us. And they said, yes, yes, yes. 30 grand for someone who couldn't buy maple syrup. Right? That's cool. I wrote a book. I was encouraged. I was motivated. I had momentum. I said, I can write a book. I'm going to self-publish a book. I put out my first book. I remember my wife was like, what are you doing? I'm writing a book. Yeah, right. I am. I'm seriously writing a book. Put it out, and Pat Flynn bought my book. It was 99 cents. But, just pretend I didn't take it. No, I put out a book, and then the book hit #1 in its category in Amazon. Now, for some people, you realize, there's gimmicks to that. That may not be a big deal, but to me, it was a big deal. #1 in Amazon, from somebody who was just sitting in a cubicle that got let go, couldn't pay for maple syrup. I was encouraged. I felt like, there's hope here. I'm not listening to that voice anymore that's telling me that I can't go do something. I just did something. We got a Kickstarter campaign. We raised this money. We wrote a book, and it's #1 in its category. There's hope. People are listening to the show for 7 hours. That led me to meeting a gentleman named Kamanzi Constable, who's just an incredible guy. He's now the official co-host of the podcast. And Kamanzi and I started working together on a new book. And we pitched it to his publisher. He already had a published book deal. And they took it. They gave me a published book deal. A traditional published book. Later this year, my wife and daughter and I are going to be able to go to Barnes & Nobles and pick up this book. That's incredible. The name of the book is called Stop. We're talking about Stop Chasing Influencers. Not a slap at influencers, but just saying there's a greater way to create influence and do something that has an impact, rather than just copying what someone else is doing. That's another thing you need to stop doing. Be your authentic self. Don't try to be John Lee Dumas. He's John Lee Dumas. Be you, right? I get this tweet from Omar. I wasn't surprised to see one of my favorite podcasts started out at the top of what's hot of all podcasts on iTunes. No listeners. Somehow this hit #1 in what's hot. Now, those of you who are familiar with iTunes, what's hot, that changes pretty rapidly. But for a moment, however long, it started out as #1. The voice that's telling me there's no possibility of creating impact is starting to die. This is a picture last year of a group of podcasters in South Florida, and we decided, hey, let's have a meetup. There's no podcasting meetup in South Florida, let's just create one. Let's just meet at Dunkin' Donuts in Davie. And John Dennis was a part of that. And we got together and we said, hey, let's try to make this consistent. Last month, okay, you can't really see it here, so I'm not sure what happened. But last month we had this same group, and it is over 30 people. In less than 1 year, a meetup has been created where people are interested in podcasting, and over 30 people are coming. I mean, that didn't exist. Chris Brogan invited me to be a guest on his podcast. Chris Brogan. I still can't believe that happened. I get letters in the mail like this. This is crazy. The king of podcasting. The audio. Who's this guy kidding? Right? This guy wrote me this letter. Nuts. I was just at NMX last week, and a guy came up to me and he's like, I'm from Alaska. I listen to your show. I love your show. I brought you a bottle of wine from Alaska, and I'm here just to meet you. I sat and talked with him for an hour and a half. I had a guy recently reach out to myself and said, I want to do something nice for you and your family. You don't have to do that. No, I really want to. What do you need? No, seriously, tell me. Well, I want to take my wife and daughter to Disney World, and maybe somebody's got a timeshare or something. It's okay. Don't worry about it if you don't. It's fine. He starts checking out, and it turns out his company had some kind of connection with a resort in Orlando that I would never have the money to pay for. And he says, what are the dates? I told him the dates. He booked 7 days for us to stay in this resort in May. Next month we're going to Disney. Now, we got to pay for Disney. That's pretty bad. Right? But still, free place to stay from someone who loves the show, that wants to support us. Amazing. Stop what's not working. Omar Zinholm and Nicole here, they're a good example of this. They started a podcast called People Who Know Their Shit. And they started the show, and not a big impact. They went to Podcast Movement last year. They said, all right, we got to pivot. We got to figure this out. Came up with some ideas, listened to other shows to get really good examples and clarity. And then they launched a show called the $100 MBA. My slide doesn't have it on here for some reason. They launched a show called the $100 MBA, which is here. And that show was best in iTunes in 2014 last year. Something wasn't working, so they stopped. Right? Stop judging a book by its cover. This is important. It's real easy to look at people around this room and say, I don't think I could strategically align with her. You don't know where somebody's going to be in 2 years. You don't know where they're going to be in 5 years. You don't know who they're going to be. This is the moment. This is the weekend for you to connect with everyone in this room and start collaborating, start working together to help increase the visibility of what you're doing and increase the likelihood of success. Case in point. This is Dan Franks. Dan Franks is my business partner. He used to be a pro wrestler. A pro wrestler. And when I first met him, it would have been real easy for me to look at him and say, he's a pro wrestler. What's he going to do to help me? But I'm going to talk about collaboration here. Collaboration is so key, and Chris was talking about it earlier. This is our opportunity to collaborate. So I'm going to talk about real quickly, how we got into podcast movement, Dan Franks and I. If I had judged him based on him being a wrestler, nothing would have ever happened. But through a series of events that you can apply to what you're doing, you can see momentum, and you can see some opportunities created. All right? Now, I did write a book last year that I mentioned earlier called Podcasting Good to Great, How to Grow Your Audience Through Collaboration. So a lot of the points are detailed in that book. It's 99 cents, no big deal. But the first one is Entrepreneur Showdown. That was Dan Frank's podcast. I heard about his podcast. Let's do it. It was okay, but it was kind of creative. And because I had tried things that were outside the box, I kind of understood where he was coming from. So I just thought, this is the guy I want to notice. This is the guy I want to support. Well, that turned into, I was going to be in Dallas, Texas for an event, Michael Hyatt event called Platform. And I reached out to Dan and said, hey, I want to have a meetup, but I don't feel like my audience is very big. Maybe we can combine your audience and my audience, and let's just see if we could collaborate on a meetup. And we had a meetup in Dallas, and you could see there was a few people at this meetup. One of the people at this meetup, which is hard to see in this picture, is Cynthia Sanchez. She's wearing this white top over here, but she does Oh So Interesting. Some of you might be familiar with Cynthia. And we were talking with Cynthia, and we said, hey, it'd be fun to try something. It'd be fun to do this thing called a mashup. So we decided to do something called the Holiday Mashup. And basically a mashup is where you get with other podcasters, and you do a series of podcasts, like maybe 3 episodes. One episode is the format of your show, one episode is the format of someone else's show, and one episode is the format of the other person's show. And it highlights everybody in the group. There's basically cross-reference between the audiences, and the other audiences get to know the other podcasters. That's kind of the mindset. And we decided, hey, let's do it around the holidays. So we did the Holiday Mashup. And it was a lot of fun. And it worked. People found out about Starting with Dallas. People found out about Entrepreneur Showdown. People found out about Oh So Interesting. And then we decided NMX is coming up. Why don't we do a meetup in NMX, the 3 of us? Let's carry the momentum into NMX. We did the Holiday Mashup NMX meetup that year. We planned it the first night before the event, and we had over 100 people come to our meetup. And it was because we kind of circled together and said, let's point to each other, let's help each other out, let's use this momentum, let's share it with our networks. And over 100 people came to this meetup. And at this meetup, and at this event, is where Dan and I started hearing people say, we want a podcast conference. So we decided we're creating a podcast conference. We created Podcast Movement. We said, will people support this? Remember we talked about the Kickstarter? We can get advice, we can find out what we don't know, and we can validate the idea through Kickstarter. We already talked about it. We were able to do that. We were able to raise the money through Kickstarter and have that event. Last year was our first event. I don't know why my image is not showing up, so I'll apologize. But there was over 600 podcasters at that event. Something that didn't exist in January of that year, later in August, had over 600 podcasters that came to Dallas, Texas in August, the hottest time of the year, to come to a podcasting conference. And it was incredible. This year we're doing it again. We have Aisha Tyler. Some of you are familiar with Aisha. She does The Talk, right? On CBS. She does Archer. She does Whose Line Is It Anyway? Of course, John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. Lou, we love Lou. He's in Orlando. WDW Radio. Pat Flynn, of course, from Smart Passive Income. Roman Mars from 99% Invisible. Sarah Koenig from Serial. Some of you have heard Serial. Arguably one of the most popular podcasts in the world. They're going to be a podcast movement this year, and a host of other amazing podcasters and companies. It's incredible. We're also doing small regional events, much like Florida Podfest. We did Podcast Florida in Orlando last December. We did an online conference called Business Podcasters Summit in January. We did Podcast San Diego recently, just a one-day event, and then we're doing Podcast Midwest in Chicago in May. Then we got a couple other cities coming up, Boston, Atlanta, a few others. Last point is listen. Okay, and I'll try to make this quick. We've talked about stop. We've talked about collaboration. Right? How you can work with other people that you meet this weekend, with different people in your network, and collaborate with them to increase the visibility, increase the likelihood of success. Now it's all about listening. We know this. You need to listen to your target customer. You need to listen to your audience. They'll tell you what their challenges are. But I'm going to take this a step further. We know to listen to our audience, and we should know that. The other people that we need to listen to is the people that love us the most, our family. Right? I need to be listening to my wife. I need to be listening to my daughter. Because what good is it to gain all this knowledge this weekend and go out and do these amazing things and not have the people who love you most along for the ride? What good is it? And I'm learning that right now. It's so critical that you listen, not just to your listeners and your audience, but you also listen to those who love you the most. Now, this is something that's special to me. I have secured a special model that's here, very difficult to book, but I was able to work this out, and she is going to come up here. We're going to do a very short interview in closing. So some of you know, you're my friends on social media, and you know Friday is a very important day for me. So if you please welcome our model, Lana Easley. Lana, would you come forward? Come on up. Yeah, that's fine. Wow. Can you turn around and look at everybody? Can you say hi? Hi. Is it on? Say hi.
Hi.
Okay. What is your name?
Lana.
Lana, what's your last name? What's your last name? What's your last name? She doesn't know her last name. Okay. That's all right. How old are you?
4.
You're 4? Okay. What advice do you have for all of these podcasters?
Start the down.
Starve the doubt. That's really good advice, Lana. 4 years old. You're so wise. Lana, what should podcasters do this summer?
Podcast movement.
Podcast movement! Right again! That's a nice shirt you have on there, by the way. Okay, Lana, what's your final thoughts for the audience today?
I love you.
I love you. Thank you for allowing that. That's a sweet moment for us. But the point is, we talked about voices. The voices in your head that are saying you can't have an impact. The voices that are saying, you're not capable of doing something amazing. What voice are you going to be for your audience? That's what I want to leave with you in closing. What voice are you going to be for your network, for those around you? What voice are you going to be for your family, for your children? Are you going to be the voice that says, fall in line, you can't do that, that's not for you? Or are you going to be the voice that says, no, you can do this. You can get advice, you can validate the idea, you can test. You can come to Florida Podfest and meet fellow people and collaborate with them. What voice will you be after this weekend, after all the knowledge you're going to soak in at Florida Podfest? That's my parting word with you, is what voice will you be? Again, thank you, and word to your mother. I'm Jared Easley. Thank you so much.
We'll have some more information about the podcast movement. Some people were asking, please talk to Jared throughout it. I highly recommend you attend it. Katie and I